In this video, we play 3-5 cash at the Venetian. In the first session, we get destroyed. But stay tuned as we go back to the Venetian 1 week later for maximum redemption. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe. It helps YouTube algorithm. Most of you aren't subscribed. Hit the subscribe button. It's free. You can always change your mind later. Let's go. In the first hand of this session, there is an under the gun limp for $5. The hijack raises to $30, and we 3-bet on the cutoff to 125 with Jack 10 of diamonds. Being this deep, we can definitely 3-bet this hand, but I don't think we need to go this big. I should have gone a bit smaller. The hijack makes a call, and the flop comes King, Queen, Queen. There is one diamond on board to go along with our open-ended straight draw, and when it checks to us, we decide to down bet for $75. Our opponent makes a call. The turn is the deuce of hearts. This is no help to us, and when our opponent checks to us again, we have to decide whether to bet or check. Having Jack 10 here is okay, as we block hands like Queen Jack and King Jack that may call the flop and fold to a turn bet. I also think our opponent will have some single pair hands like 8s, 9s, 10s, maybe even Ace King that doesn't call 3 streets. For this reason, we decide to barrel again. We bet $300 into about $400. Unfortunately for us, this does not work as our opponent announces all in. It's about $900 total, so about $600 more for us to make the call. We hate it, but because we are getting nearly 4-1, we have to call 600 to win about 2,200, we make the call. The river is the 7 of diamonds and is no help. Our opponent shows ace queen off for flopped trips. I definitely don't think they should be calling our 3-bet pre, but it is what it is. We went for it and got put in an annoying spot where we had to make the call. We rebuy for another 1,000. In this hand, there is an under the gun raise to $20, and the middle position and the small blind both make the call. We decide to complete in the big blind with King 8 of hearts. The flop comes quite sexy. Queen Jack 10, 2 hearts. We flop an open-ended straight draw as well as the second nut flush draw. The original raiser bets $55, middle position calls, and the small blind 3-bets to 190. With so much equity, we are not going anywhere. We make the call. Surprisingly, everyone else also makes a call. This pot has now ballooned to $860, and we are just now seeing a turn that comes the 4 clubs. This time it checks around to the small blind, who bets $675. I really thought about this one for a while, but with so much equity, so many outs, I think we just have to go with it here, so we make the call. The rest of the players in the hand finally fold, and the river comes the 6 of clubs. We brick everything, and our opponent goes all in, and at this point, we have $100 left. So there's about $2,200 in the pot. Obviously, we have king high, but we can't really fold for $100 with so much in the pot, so we make the call. As expected, our opponent shows 9-8 off for the flopped straight. This hand was quite frustrating as it was against the same exact player we just lost one buy-in to, and it was pretty much right after that hand as well. Don't think there's really much we could have done that different in this hand. Glad that we only had 1K to start and not a lot more. Maybe, just maybe, we can win a hand in this session as we pick up pocket deuces on the button and there's a $5 limp on the hijack. In a normal, tougher game, I'll probably just fold deuces here, but we can really just get away with limping and not getting 3-bet, so we limp as well. It's either this or raise and likely get called anyways and not flop a deuce and end up having to bluff, which can definitely work, but this time we just chose to call. The small blind calls and the big blind checks. The flop comes Jack, 9, deuce. 2 spades. The big blind actually decides to lead for $10 and we raise to $50. We are heads up as the big blind makes a call and the turn is the 4 of spades. When it checks to us, we could check back, but I think that's too weak as I think we'll still get called by top pair here. With some straight draw possibilities and 1 spade to come that would put us in rough shape, we bet $100 into about 120. Surprisingly, our opponent actually mean raises us to $200. This is weird, but we're not folding, we make the call. The river is the 3 of clubs. Our opponent is not slowing down and bets $475 into about 520, leaving about 420 behind. I may get tons of shit for this in the comments, but people just don't bluff rivers, especially like this, especially middle-aged, older guys. Like, this is just so strong, right? I mean, if I had a spade, I would definitely call, but with no spade, I think our opponent just has a flush here, and we ended up making the fold. This was a limp pot, and our opponent can literally have any 2 cards, so really wouldn't be surprised if he had spades here. Being a limp pot, he has less reason to go crazy and try to bluff as well. We bought in for 1200, added on for 2200, and ended up playing for only 3 hours to cash out for 905. That's about a $2,500 loss. 1 week later, we go back. We start off with a 3-way all-in in a $600 buy-in tournament.
Oh no. Let's dodge bullets, baby.
Pre-flop, there was an early position raise, and we called on the button with Queen 10 of spades, and the big blind called as well. The flop came Ace of spades, King of spades, Deuce of diamonds. Long story short, we ended up all in on the flop 3 ways. The early position player has Ace-King for 2 pair, we have the nut flush draw and a gut shot, and the big blind has bottom set. The turn is the 10 of diamonds, the river is the 4 of clubs, and we miss everything. On top of losing the main pot, we owe the early position player $8K for the side pot. After busting this $600 tournament in epic fashion, we hop into cash to try to make it back. In the first hand of the night, we pick up pocket kings, and we see an early position limp for $5. The hijack raises to $25, the cutoff calls, and we 3-bet on the button to 130. We could have definitely gone a lot smaller here as we are on the button, but either way it works out as the big blind ends up 4-betting to 375. Being that we are about 1K effective, I don't think there's anything else to do here but jam, so we go all in.
All in.
Our opponent quickly makes a call. Let's hope we're not up against aces. The flop comes 10, 4, 4, 2 hearts, turn Jack of hearts, river, 4 diamonds. Our opponent stands up and lets us know that we are good. We show our hand, pocket kings wins, and he shows pocket queens. It's always nice to get it in ahead and hold for stacks in the beginning of a session. Let's keep the pace as we see pocket aces in the next hand. We start recording as the Under the Gun 1 player raises to $25 and we 3-bet to $80 Under the Gun 2. The small blind 4-bets all in for $212 total. Under the Gun 1 player folds, we make the call and we see a run out. We immediately show our hand and the flop comes 9, 9, 5, 2 diamonds. The turn is the 10 of diamonds and our opponent shows Queen Jack of diamonds. River, no help, 5 of clubs. Our aces have been cracked, but we are happy to keep this guy in the game, and this is really nothing but a peanut. I will have my vengeance later. Stay tuned. In the next hand of the night, there is a button straddle on for $10. The cutoff limps for $10, the small blind folds, and we raise to $60 in the big blind with ace-7 of clubs. Our hand is going to be way ahead of these limping ranges and the straddle check back, so we are happy to raise it up. The button makes a call. The flop comes pretty decent, 10, 10, 7. Out of position, I think we're going to do a lot of checking here, so we check and our opponent checks back. The turn is a 7 of diamonds. No more pot controlling here, we are going to bet for value. We bet $50 and our opponent makes the call. The river is a 4 of hearts. This changes nothing and we bet $200 into about 230. This bet works, but maybe not in the way you're expecting, as our opponent raises to $500. The only hands we're concerned with here are a 10 or pocket 4s. This makes for a pretty easy call.
You check back at 10? I don't believe it. I have a 7. I can't fold.
I don't blame our opponent for trying to bluff here, as it's pretty unlikely for me to have a 10 or 8 all that often, but really I'm not even ever going to fold an overpair, so not a very great bluff. In the next hand we have pocket 8s and there is an under the gun 2 raised to $20. We call in the middle position and the big blind also calls. The flop comes queen 9 8 2 diamonds. It checks to us, and with bottom set here and a very wet board, we are going to bet, and we're going to bet big. We bet $60. This time, just the big blind makes the call, and the original raiser folds. The turn is a terrible one. It's the 7 of diamonds. The flush draws get there as well as 6-5. The big blind checks, and we decide to check back. The river is a 5 of spades. With a 4-liner to a straight, this has become a very bad run out. With this said, I do not think our opponent is checking in the big blind with a straight or flush here, so we are going to go for value. We bet 150 into about 120. We are trying to make our hand look like a bluff, and if we get raised, then we're just going to fold. Luckily, it does not come to this as our opponent makes the call. We show our hand and are good. This was certainly a pretty thin value bet and not one that I would necessarily go for against a very tough table. In the next hand, we have 10-9 suited and we raise on the cutoff to $20. The small blind makes the call and the big blind folds. The flop comes Jack, 8, deuce, 2 spades. We flop the world, a straight flush draw. It checks to us and we bet $25. Our opponent makes the call. The turn is the 3 of spades. We have now improved to a flush, and when our opponent checks, we decide to bet $75. They make the call once again. The river is a 7 of clubs. This is a nice and clean run out. Our opponent originally started with only about 350, and surprisingly actually donks all in for 250. We snap call, throw in one chip, and our opponent actually insta-mucks.
You fold?
If we don't have to show our hand, then we don't, so we slowly muck our hand and pick up a pretty easy couple $100. In the next hand, we are only 6-handed, and we raise to $20 on the hijack with pocket jacks. The button 3-bets us to $70, and the small blind actually cold calls. We are about $700 effective with the 3-better in this hand, so not that deep, and being that we're only 6-handed, I really think we should just 4-bet get it in here, as this particular player has been quite loose. This is the same player that 4-bet us earlier with Queen Jack suited for $200 when we had aces. Not to mention there is extra dead money in the pot because of the small blind call. So this is what we do. We 4-bet to $350. The button actually 5-bets all in for about $700, and the small blind actually calls for around $400 or $500.
Alright, I'm gonna gamble.
We are not folding for these odds. Let's see the run out. The flop comes 8, 6, deuce. Turn 8. River, another 8. The button shows his hand and he has ace king. We show our hand and are good. We end up nearly breaking this table as 2 players bust in a 3-way all-in hand. It is quite a nice visual as about $1,300 is pushed our way, slowly and steadily. I'm really not sure why everyone hates pocket jacks. I like them quite a lot. In the next hand, we have pocket 8s once again, and we raise an early position to $20. The hijack and the big blind both make the call. We do not flop a set this time as the flop comes 10, 7, 3. Surprisingly, the big blind actually leads for $60. With middle pair here and backdoor straight and flush draw possibilities, we are not going to go anywhere quite yet, so we make the call. The hijack folds, and the turn is the 8 of spades. We don't flop a set, but we turned one, that's right. Our opponent is not slowing down and bets $95 into about 180. With 2 gut shot possibilities and the flush draw on the flop, we want to get the money in now, so we put our opponent all in for about $200 more.
All in.
They make the call, and the river is a 7 of clubs. We boat up. We show our hand and are obviously good, and we pick up a nearly $800 pot. In the next hand, there is an under the gun shadow for $10. The cutoff, button, and small blind all limp in for $10. We look down at the best starting hand in poker, pocket aces in the big blind. What an absolute glorious moment to get aces. We raise to $70 in the big blind, and the button and the small blind both make the call. We are 3 ways to a flop, and it comes 10, 9, 8, 2 clubs. The small blind was about $600 effective to start this hand and leads for $55. With no club and obviously having this hand on a very wet board, we are going to 3-bet and just get it in with this person. We make it $250 and the button folds, and the small blind goes all in for about $500 total. We call, and let's pray for a safe run out. The turn is the 10 of diamonds. The river is a 5 of hearts. Our opponent shows pocket 7s, so he was on a draw, the bottom end of a straight draw. Glad to hold here for an over $1,200 pot. In the next hand, there is a low jack raise to $15. The hijack makes a call, and we 3-bet to 105 on the cutoff with ace king off. We probably didn't have to go this big, but whatever, it works as the hijack makes a call. This player is only about $500 effective, and the flop comes 7, 6, 4, 2 hearts. There's about $225 in the pot, and our opponent actually leads for $100. This play doesn't really make much sense, and with the ace of hearts and 2 overs, we are not going to fold yet. We make the call. The turn is the deuce of hearts. Our opponent once again bets $100. We are only 1 heart away from the nuts, so we are not going anywhere. We decide to jam for our opponent's remaining $200.
All in.
In reflection, this is not a good play. If our opponent is bluffing, we do not want them to fold, and we are only going to get called by better here. Our opponent makes a call for his remaining stack, and the river is the 8 of clubs and is no help. We are shown jack 8 of hearts. Yes, that's right, our opponent called a 3-bet pre with jack 8 of hearts and donked and got there on the turn. We could have definitely saved $200 in this hand by just calling the turn, but it is what it is. Sometimes you make mistakes, and this was basically our only big mistake all night. Next up, there is an under the gun straddle for $10. The button and the small blind all call, and we are in the big blind with pocket threes, so we just call as well. The straddle raises to $50, and everyone calls. When it comes back to us, for $40 more, we're not going to fold to try to hit a set, so we make the call. Hitting a set is what we do as the flop comes king, queen, 3. The small blind in this hand is the same one as last hand, who called our 3-bet with jack 8 suited. Safe to say he is a loose cannon. He leads for $55, and we make the call and everyone else folds. The turn is the 6 of hearts. The small blind now slows down and checks. We are going for revenge, and we are trying to set up a pot-sized jam on the river, so we bet 150. Our opponent once again calls. The river is the 4 of diamonds. The front door flush does get there, but with a diamond ourselves, and when our opponent checks once again to us, I'm not too concerned with the flush. This is the type of guy that would definitely lead if he hit a flush on the river. I'm thinking he has something like top pair. And loose opponents do not fold top pair, so we are putting them all in for $500 into about $600. They go deep into the tank, eventually saying, "What time is it?" to see if he wants to go home now or not. Unfortunately, he decided not to go home and makes the fold. In talking to him after the hand, he said he had a queen, which means he was even lighter than I thought. In the very last hand of the night, we are up against the same opponent from the last two hands, and we have ace-jack off. Our opponent limps for $5 on the cutoff, and we raise to $30 on the button. Both the small blind and the cutoff call. The flop comes 4-4-4. It checks to us, and versus these players, we basically have the nuts on this board, so we are betting $30 for value. Just our good friend to our right makes the call. The turn is a 3 of hearts. There's about 150 in the pot, and our opponent actually leads for $100. We are a non-believer versus this opponent, so we make the call. The river comes the queen of clubs. There's about 350 in the pot now, and our opponent goes all in for about 330. This guy is a maniac and could have easily picked up a draw on the turn and missed on the river and still ended up jamming. So don't think we can fold. We make the call and see the bad news as our opponent shows queen 9 off. He led with absolute air on the turn and got there on the river. He will have the last laugh of the night as we are done.
What's up, guys? We are leaving the Venetian poker room. We are in the parking garage, about to leave. We actually bought in for $1,200, cashed out for $5,558. That's a profit of over $4,300. Might be my second largest profit ever. And yeah, it was a pretty sick night. We ran pretty well, played against a bunch of whale type, fish type players who were just giving us money apparently. And yeah, that's how it goes sometimes. We busted an $1,100 tournament at the Win, and then we busted the $600 at the Venetian. We just stayed at the Venetian to play cash, and we definitely made it back and then some. So man, these cash games right now in Vegas are actually kind of popping off during the WSOP. We managed to hide the camera long enough throughout our sessions. We got asked a couple times, "Are you filming?" I just said no. And I'm just taking notes, like, just play dumb. So you have to do that. It's kind of a gray area. One of the dealers was actually like, "Hey, are you vlogging?" And I thought he was gonna be like, "You can't film," but he was like, "Just keep it on the down low." It's a very gray area. Some people obviously care, like the floor and stuff, but some people don't care at all. And they wanna see us do well and succeed. So if you're one of those people, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for more poker content. This was a sick vlog, so many sick hands. I know you enjoyed it. Better like and subscribe. Let's go.